For over half a century, the automobile has brought death, injury, and the most inestimable sorrow and deprivation to millions of people. Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader's 1965 book, Unsafe at Any Speed, was a turning point for government-regulated car safety by bringing to light the faults of the automobile industry, resulting in the passage of the 1966 National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act, which created a new standard for automotive safety that continues to protect the lives of Americans. Unsafe at Any Speed, the U-turn in car safety. After World War II, America's economy exploded. Using the industrial base created to supply the war, manufacturing became a major industry in the United States. This resulted in cheaper goods, especially the automobile. With the passage of the 1956 Interstate and Defense Highways Act, which President Dwight D. Eisenhower described as
essential to meet the needs of our growing population, our expanding economy, and our national security.
In his 1955 State of the Union address, the population began to move away from the cities and into suburbs, where cars were a necessary means of transportation. Additionally, as media such as televisions began to display the perfect American family as one that owned a car, automobiles became cultural icons. Many shows started incorporating the vehicles into their episodes, such as Leave It to Beaver, where the father figure Ward Cleaver emphasized that
the thing I care most about is the safety of the car.
However, what the Cleaver family didn't know was that no matter what car they had, it was guaranteed to be unsafe. At this time, automobile manufacturers focused on profits rather than the inherent safety of the vehicles themselves, leading to most cars having major flaws when or if it got into an accident. While safety technology had been around, car companies refused to include them, blaming the driver for crashes. John F. Gordon, the president of General Motors from 1958 to 1965, even said, "It is completely unrealistic even to talk about a foolproof and crash-proof car, and that designing cars that will make collisions harmless is a perplexing combination of defeatism and wishful thinking." These deliberate oversights by company leaders cost the American population 5.39 deaths per 100 million vehicle miles traveled in 1964. However, when a young man by the name of Ralph Nader entered the picture, things were going to change. Ralph Nader was a Harvard Law School student who became interested in car safety after witnessing many accidents while hitchhiking. After doing research and publishing 2 articles, one, The American Automobile Designed for Death in 1958, and the other, The Safe Car You Can't Buy in 1959, Nader began corresponding with Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the Assistant Secretary of Labor, who had published his own report on car safety in 1959. By 1964, Nader had begun working for Moynihan, and in 1965, Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, The Design-In Dangers of the American Automobile, hit the shelves. While the automobile industry and government framed the number of car crashes as being a result of reckless driving, Unsafe at Any Speed explored the effect that faulty construction had on car crashes. In the book, Nader outlined the corruption within the automobile industry that resulted in diverting money from the proper construction of cars to the style of the cars in order to sell them because the industry holds the view that seeing is selling, style gets the priority. Nader built upon the shallow profit-driven focus most corporations had, emphasizing the average increase in car costs due to new superficial features, whereas the safety features cost about 23 cents per car for the company. Additionally, while there were some regulations for car safety, Nader pointed out that there were multiple independent organizations with their own sets of standards that are advisory only. Their use by anyone engaged in industry or trade is voluntary. As a result, safety measures in cars were almost non-existent. While some companies, such as Ford and American Motors, included a few safety measures like seatbelts, they were not advertised and often cost more. Most companies refused to include them entirely. Furthermore, Nader highlighted the danger posed by a young model of small rear-engine vehicle by GM, the Corvair, which caused the death of actor Ernie Kovacs in 1962, and, according to Nader, had a higher rollover rate than the average vehicle at the time, something that GM knew about but chose to ignore.
Ralph Nader's words reached the minds of many American car buyers, causing the book to sell more than 450,000 copies, becoming a New York Times bestseller within a year. Following the publication of Unsafe at Any Speed, customers refused to buy the faulty vehicles mentioned in the book, leading to a sharp decrease in car sales, specifically for the Corvair. This damaged Chevrolet's reputation, ultimately leading to the discontinuation of the car in 1969. By introducing the cheapness companies had toward human safety, Nader inflicted a sense of betrayal in the reader, as the manufacturers could no longer claim to have the customer's best interests in mind when it came to car design, and thus couldn't justify adding $700 per year for the sake of looks alone. As a result, car companies pushed back against Nader. In the years following the publication, GM went to extremes to discredit his work by hiring a private investigator to follow Nader because they were worried that he would further damage car sales. In response, Nader sued GM for invading his privacy. They settled out of court, and GM paid Nader $425,000. This pushback did not stop Nader from advocating for car safety. In 1966, Ralph Nader appeared on Capitol Hill to advocate for increased regulation. There, Nader explained that the task of the federal government is implementing a public policy for automotive safety, and that the crash-worthy automobile should be our first priority because it is faster, cheaper, and more enduring to build operationally safe and crash-worthy automobiles that will prevent death and injury. However, the leaders of the car industry argued,
"We do not regard the vehicle, the automotive vehicle, the automobile, as being inherently dangerous."
Following the meetings, President Lyndon B. Johnson claimed, "The gravest problem before this nation next to war in Vietnam is the death and destruction, the shocking and senseless carnage that strikes daily on our highways." However, what Johnson didn't know was that in 191 years of American history, there were about 600,000 battle deaths, while in 54 years of motor vehicle history, there were over 1.5 million motor vehicle casualties. On September 9, 1966, Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act and Highway Safety Act, claiming, "Safety is no luxury item. It is no optional extra. It must be a normal cost of doing business." These two acts were designed to introduce federal safety standards for motor vehicles and require driver safety programs in order to reduce the fatalities associated with car crashes. A month after the passage of the two laws, the Department of Transportation was created in order to supervise all forms of transportation under one department. Inspired by Unsafe at Any Speed, the government went to work enacting new regulations to improve car safety, with the first one being Standard Number 209, the requirement of seatbelts in cars. Regulation didn't end with the Johnson administration. In 1970, under President Richard Nixon, Congress passed the Highway Safety Act of 1970, which created the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA. NHTSA is in charge of investigating safety problems with cars and subsequently creating ever-changing safety standards that fit the needs of automotive technological advancements. They began working to help reduce the motor vehicle fatality rate with requirements such as a national speed limit of 55 miles per hour, use of 3-point seatbelts, and mandatory statewide seatbelt laws. Many of the safety features drivers take for granted today are a result of decades-long battles between the government and automobile manufacturers started by Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed. Despite more people driving nowadays, there has been a decrease in fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles driven per year on the road since the publication of the book. While these earlier regulations were critical in protecting the lives of Americans on the road, their effect was not felt immediately. However, as Joan Claybrook, former head of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration under President Jimmy Carter, stated, the
statute was sparked by Ralph Nader's book Unsafe at Any Speed,
which forced automobile manufacturers to put the safety of their customers over the profits, and eventually the fatality rate began dropping and has continued to since. As technology improved in the 1990s, new forms of safety like analog braking systems, backup cameras, and blind spot monitoring systems were introduced to new cars.
More cars are being driven now than at any point in history. As such, it is essential that the cars people are riding in will take them from point A to point B safely. Despite early opposition, Ralph Nader's publication forced car manufacturers to do a U-turn on their views of automobile regulation, placing consumer safety over excessive profits. His work resulted in the 1966 National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act, the Highway Safety Act, the establishment of the Department of Transportation, and the Highway Safety Act of 1970, which created federal car safety standards. Unsafe at Any Speed brought about an era of change in the automobile industry, one that continues to protect the lives of thousands of Americans to this day.